Welcome to Podcasting Smarter, the podcast for podcasters by podcasters. Podcasting Smarter is the official podcast from Podbean, featuring podcasting interviews, best practices, and helpful tips. We're here to give you the tools, resources, product updates, and news to help you get started podcasting and keep your podcast growing.
Hello and welcome to Podcasting Smarter. This is Norma Jean Belenky, Podbean's head of events. And in today's episode, we're having a conversation with Podbean's podcast specialist, Roni Gosch, on 6 ways to make podcast conferences work for you. We've got a lot of in-person podcast conferences coming up this summer. I'm attending Radio Days Asia in the fall. Roni, you'll be at Podcast Movement.
I will be.
In Denver. Yeah, we're so excited. So for everybody out there who's thinking about attending an in-person conference, who's signed up, who's ready to attend, we'll be there. So definitely come say hi to us. Yep. And we're going to just share, some ways to make the most of that experience because it can be really overwhelming. So Roni, what are the benefits of attending podcast conferences for podcasters?
There's quite a few. When it comes to, going somewhere physical and engaging with everybody, you not only have the opportunity to, meet new people, forge new relationships, or, make the connections within the podcasting community that will, lift you up. You're also putting yourself in an easily recognizable space for podcasters and podcast listeners. So you can say, hey guys, I'm going to be at this event. I want to meet my listeners. I want to engage face to face with the people that I've been speaking to for, the past, several dozen episodes. You are going to a place that is specifically crafted for podcasters so that you can, talk shop, you can get tips, you can network, you can just meet all of the people that you've been engaging with digitally, face to face. And so by, prioritizing attending, making that part of like maybe your advertising or your promotion budget for the year, you are giving yourself a chance to promote your podcast and really engage with your listenership and with your peers in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great about it is, podcasting sometimes can feel like a singular activity, right? It's you and the mic, you're building your audience, you're doing your own thing. But when you come to a conference, you're surrounded by people that you can collaborate with. You're surrounded by people that love your show, whose shows you're going to love. And podcasters overall are very collaborative, right? When you go to podcasting conferences, overall, you're not getting a lot of competitive energy from people. It's really collaborative. Like people want to team up. People want to collaborate. People want to do stuff together that benefits everybody. So it's definitely a real community, when you're at these things in person. And there's a couple of ways, to make the most out of networking opportunities at podcast conferences. Can we talk a little bit more about that, Roni?
Oh, sure thing. Podcast conferences are just like ground zero for networking within the community. Everybody goes, everybody wants to, pass out business cards. Everybody wants to sit and have a chat. So that's ideally the best place to go to do those things, to, sit down and say, hey, we want to collab, or hey, we want to do a cross promo, or hey, I want to start a podcast with you and, start a whole podcast network. That's the best place to go to have those conversations. The energy is super high. Everybody's super open to, doing anything. So that's the best place to go for it. The best advice I can give you though, is to beware of the networking parties because they're going to be more focused on partying than on networking. So when it comes to doing the conferences, you want to be smart and you want to plan ahead. You want to check out the attendee list, the speaker list, see who's going, and reach out before time and say, hey, I see that you're going to Podcast Movement, or hey, I see you're going to Radio Days Asia. Do you have time, while you're there to, sit down with me, let's have a chat, or hey, I wanted to talk with you about collabing. Do you have time while we're both going to be at the conference so we can, sit down and focus on that conversation? Doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Doing that will let you, put it in your schedule, make it something firm so that when you get there, it's not like you're chasing them down saying, hey, do you have 15 minutes here to have a chat? And then having them go, oh, sorry, I have this meeting, or I have to go to this session, or I'm running a booth and I can't really step away right now. So by, reaching out beforehand, you're really letting that be the priority when you get there instead of trying to chase everybody down while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really exciting, right? I think you want to make sure that you don't lose momentum and all the excitement. So, when you meet people and you get their business card, add them on LinkedIn, send them a quick message. That's a really great way to make sure that, even if you misplace the card, anything like that, you'll still have that connection with the person. And it's something where you can also plant the seed for a lot of things. If you meet somebody that has a similar podcast or, whose audience will benefit from your show, you'll benefit from being exposed to their audience. They'll benefit from being on your show, that kind of thing. It's something where, you can plant that seed, say, oh, great to meet you, and collaborate, throw ideas out there and follow up afterwards. So it's a really important aspect as well. And like you said, Roni, it can be really overwhelming. So check the program, see which sessions you want to attend that you're excited to attend, that are going to, be of the most value, and have fun. There's so many aspects there where, it's hard if you're, starting your podcast and you want to be professional, of course. And that's what these conferences are there for. But there are also opportunities, like you mentioned, the networking parties are mostly, to meet people on a human level, which can be really fun as well. And I think in terms of selecting what sessions, tracks, or workshops, what kind of workshops that you want to prioritize, it's different for every podcaster. So are there any tracks? Are there any sessions that you recommend podcasters should prioritize when they're looking at attending a podcasting conference in person?
It all depends on what your main goal is when you go to a conference. When you are, setting up saying, okay, I'm going to be spending, a week with these people, what do I want my end goal to be? Are you going in there with the intention of finding some people to collab with? Are you going in with the intention of, boosting your audience? Are you going in with the intention of trying to figure out how to monetize your podcast? Once you figure that out, you can go through the program and you can, highlight, okay, there's, X amount of sessions that are all on this particular topic. But then when you do that, you might also want to cross-reference, okay, Podbean's going and they're talking about advertising. Is the session that they're doing on advertising something that they've put on the blog already, or is this something different? They're doing a session on audience. I can't say they're doing a session on audience avatars. I'm doing a session on audience avatars.
Okay.
And while we've mentioned it before on the blog, we don't really have any full blog posts on it. So it might be, worth going, saying, hey, there's this session that doesn't have any matching resources online. I want to check it out and see what's going on, to see what information they're presenting. If there's, a particular person who's speaking that, you're really excited to see, or you want to learn more about, what they're doing, if you want to collab with them, check out their session to see, what they're talking about, what their vibe is, and then you can, proceed from there. When it comes to the different tracks, there's always going to be something that's, for podcasters that are just starting out. There's always going to be something for like the industry professionals that's going to be more focused on like branded podcasts and advertising. But then there's always going to be a couple like sweet spots in the middle where it's like, okay, this one's more focused on production. This one's more focused on promotion. So depending on what your main goal is for your conference, that's what's going to dictate what sessions you want to go to and what track you want to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point. If you're just starting out, you're coming to a conference, you're excited, to have just launched your podcast, you're thinking about launching your podcast. There are beginner sessions at almost every podcast conference. So it's really, something where there's a place for everybody. Whether you're, running an ad tech company, or you're, you're Podbean, you're hosting over 640,000 podcasts, or if you're just, thinking about starting a podcast, there's going to be something there for you too. And next I want to talk about social media. So, there's so much going on at conferences. There are a lot of opportunities to leverage social media and online platforms. So how can podcasters do that to extend the reach of their conference experience, impact?
When it comes to social media, the key things are going to be letting your audience know that you're going to be at that conference, and utilizing the same hashtags, or adding the folks that are going to be at the conference. So, for example, Podcast Movement, they follow the Podcast Movement hashtag on all of the social media platforms. So if you're posting and you're using that hashtag and you post a picture or You're like, hey guys, here's, my travel microphone that's going to Podcast Movement, and you'd post a picture and you'd use the hashtag. They're likely going to see it and they're likely going to share it. So if you're using the hashtags, if you're, adding the conferences that you're going to see, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're going to see it. They're going to engage with it. It's going to boost you in the algorithm. It's going to share your account with other podcasters who are following the particular con that you're going to see. So it helps boost you in that way, but it also kind of highlights you a bit in the eyes of the conference. So for example, if you're, posting a lot on Twitter and you're, adding Podcast Movement, you're using the hashtag, they're checking out your account, they're getting familiar with you. So then when, you post something exciting, there is a chance that they might, like it, or they might retweet it because they want to share because they're excited for you. So it's a great way to let other entities become familiar with you and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a way to further, get involved in the community, right? Whether that's the community of a specific conference, whether it's, overall podcasting professionals, if you're a podcast editor, if you have a specific niche for your podcast, and to really engage as well. So that's really helpful, Roni. And last, I want to talk about what are some actionable steps that podcasters can take after conferences? Because, it is a bit of a blur. Let's be honest, right? There's multiple sessions going on at a time, depending on the conference that you're at. There's going to be, 6 or 7 different time slots a day. There's also networking events. There's an exhibitor hall. There's a lot of stuff going on depending on the conference. So it can feel really overwhelming. So post-conference, what are some things that podcasters can do to capitalize on the connections that they've made and what they've learned?
So first things first, if there's anybody you want to email, after the conference because you want to continue a conversation, my best suggestion there is to either email them on the spot while you're at the conference, like have your phone open to shoot them an email just so it kind of reminds you when you go and check your email later that that's something that you're trying to get going, or wait at least a couple days until after the conference. That last day of, everybody packing up, the day after, everybody's flying out, everybody needs some time to decompress. So if you send, like, for example, if the conference ends on a Friday and everybody's flying out Friday night and Saturday morning, and you send an email Saturday afternoon, there's a chance that there's going to be a long delay in between you sending that email and you getting a response, just because there's, email backlogs, people are jet lagged, people are trying to, decompress after a very emotionally intensive event because there's so many people. Just saying,
yeah, there's so many people, there's so much excitement, there's so many big personalities. That's the other great thing about podcasting is that podcasters, we love to talk, right? And there's a lot of really great personalities in podcasting, but if you're an introvert or you need that downtime, it's really important to prioritize that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely want to give yourself a little bit of space after the conference before you dive right back into, getting that conversation about that collab going, which means that you do want to make sure that you're keeping all of the business cards on hand. You're taking notes about who you want to talk to about and what you want to talk about. And even after the conference is over, it's okay to utilize the same hashtags that you were using on social media. You can, post pictures afterwards still and keep that hype going and let people know that you were excited to see them, or, do a Throwback Thursday post from, your picture at the iHeartRadio party. You can make content and, keep that energy going long after the conference ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something where, maybe when you do an episode swap with another podcaster, you'll have a selfie, right, to promote it with. So it's definitely something where, those memories you make, those connections you make, they're going to carry you along through your podcasting journey. Well, Roni, it's been such a pleasure. We're really excited about the conferences coming up that we're going to be at. We'll have some here in the show notes. And of course, we've got our live virtual events here at Podbean as well. This episode is also going to be on our blog, so check it out. The link is in the show notes. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at podcastingsmarter@podbean.com. Thanks so much and happy podcasting. Thanks, Roni.
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Podcasting Smarter. If you have any podcasting questions or want to get in touch, send us an email at podcastingsmarter@podbean.com. Thanks so much and happy podcasting.